and welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name is Michael, I am a chaser, and today I am an excitement boy. You'll find out why later in the episode, but needless to say, I am jazzed, I am amped, or as we in the business like to say, I am jamped.
I mean, I have a guess why, but I guess I wouldn't spoil it.
No, don't spoil it.
My name's Don. I'm a big, fat, chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood, and today I am a well-stuffed stuffing boy. Happy post-Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yay.
Did you get all your stuffing?
Just pies.
Pies. Hi, my name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And today I am an early morning early birdie. Yes, good morning.
Oh, for the perkiness.
It is quite early.
Hello, I'm I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay, honey. You are. It's okay. You are.
I'm I don't know. I guess I'm also a morning boy, but more like low key. Like, I don't know. It's the day, like a couple days after Thanksgiving, you're still at your parents' house, and you come down, and your mom's just having her coffee, and she's just like, "Hey there." Hey there, champ.
You know it's early when Trevor doesn't have the quirkiest and most interesting version of "This is who I am today" answer.
I mean, I don't know. In a few days, I'll have a whole lot to say because I will be starting my all marshmallow advent calendar.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he got himself a marshmallow advent carol. Okay. I don't understand how there could be 25 marshmallows, but whatever.
Oh, Dan. My sweet summer child. The things you will learn this month.
Oh, I'm scared.
Well, welcome to the show, everybody. We've got a good one today. I'm excited for this. A bit of housekeeping first. We wanted to thank our patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much. We've got a couple new
Patreon.
You guys rock. You make this continued dedication to a weekly episode possible. So thank you. We have just released a Dan and Don episode, a mini-sode for patrons only. You can check it out there. We have a bunch of other stuff in the backlog. You have behind-the-scenes videos, cutting room floor of all the, funny, interesting side bits that get cut from the episodes. You can check out all kinds of good stuff there. If you want to support us, there's no barrier for entry, $1 or a $500, whatever you like.
No, it's $5.
I feel like the cutting room floor, at the very least, justifies the existence of a Patreon because it lets you sit down and listen to the straw that Michael must sit down and spin
into gold.
I worked so
and
very
the only
hard
reason
at
why
it.
we have him is because we actually did guess his name and force him to sit at the spinning wheel for the rest of his life.
Son of a bitch, I shouldn't have told you. But thank you very much, patrons, and I think that's it. Straight into the episode, right?
Episode.
So this is what I was referring to when I said I was an excitement boy. You ready for this?
Oh, I'm ready.
Yes.
Lizzo came to town.
Yes, she did.
Dun.
On her reindeer sled and all the presents for the good little boy. Wait, that's not Lizzo, is it?
No. It was a reindeer ass, Dan.
Yeah.
Get it right.
Now, but is a reindeer ass? Is it like just like a reindeer that's all butt, or is it like a reindeer with like a human butt for a head?
I think we
feel
should
like-
contact Lizzo and find out because I'm sure she knows.
I think it's a giant ass with reindeer antlers at the top. And then one of them also has a giant red
And like in the
Button
crest of the
nose.
butt cheek.
Yeah, exactly, sticking out. And if we're going to let people imagine what that
Yes.
could possibly be as we talk about the Lizzo concert.
Yes. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
We
Trevor-
went to the Lizzo concert. That's
And
why
by
I'm
we, you
talking
mean
about it.
Michael and Trevor.
Yes,
and
the royal
my
we.
partner, and my partner Michael. And
Yeah.
we actually did a little live, an impromptu Instagram live as we were waiting in the car because we got there extremely early. And you can see a lot of pending excitement that they just those sweet innocent boys, they didn't know what they were in for. This was all right. I think Trevor, you should do your review because you'll probably say it better than I will.
Okay, well, so first off, I cried at least 5 separate times.
And y'all should know Trevor does not.
Yes,
not
I
prone
do.
to
I am
cry.
not a crier.
No.
Yeah, I am.
No, okay. So, I don't know, to talk about like the venue. So it was the Kia Forum. I'd never been there before. I am a very large lad. I knew there would probably be other large people I would be attending with. Michael's Michael.
Yes,
Chub
my
Michael.
partner. Yes.
and I were like investigating, like, let's see if they have box seats. Which they did.
Well, you're telling it like, oh, we showed up and found out if they had box seats. You
No,
did this months and months in advance.
months in advance.
There was an odyssey involved.
Yeah.
Dan was. I was texting with Dan about it because Dan didn't attend because of his, noise aversion.
My noise canceling personality.
Yeah.
But the idea of luxury often equals accessibility and space. If not accessibility, which I feel like this was kind of a mix because it was spacious, but like there were these tiny little narrow steps to get into the box.
Oh,
yeah. The actual like going up the steps into the sort of section where the box is carved out is it's a bit of a challenge. It's kind of like going through a turnstile size entrance.
Yeah, but great seats, great view. Lizzo's DJ kind of warmed up the crowd, which
She was great.
Lovely. And then
Her childhood friend is also DJing her shows and pumping her up and kind of being her like hype person in the background.
That's so cool.
Yeah, she was awesome. She was super cool.
And then Shelby Swain, who is Lizzo's hairstylist, performed her, I think
This
her
is
new
Trevor's
single,
favorite part of the show.
Rich Bitch on Vacation.
I'm a rich
Rich
bitch, on vacation.
Which Michael thought like this was just some random person that like went up.
Jumped up on stage and was like lip syncing to a song
Yeah.
they were playing through the DJ booth. But nope, that was her song.
Yeah, amazing. I'll link to it.
It's a whole vibe.
I'm like, this is my new vacation jam. And then it came. Lizzo came, and I don't even. It's so hard to describe.
I can do it.
Like the feeling. I mean, I was crying during the first.
So
the opening
Trevor,
song.
throughout the concert, I actually spent a lot of time looking around. Like I don't usually do this when I'm watching a movie or a show or whatever, but I was looking around the audience a lot, including sort of catching Trevor's reactions, Michael's reactions, and Trevor, in the most adorable way possible, was doing the like gasp and clutch the pearls gesture probably like 700 times throughout the show. It was really, really heartwarming, and I was sitting there just enjoying how much he was enjoying it, but also having just a blast of a time. Other highlights for me of audience members, I think I said this on a comment on Instagram, but looking around the stadium, and this is the Kia Forum, massive stadium, sold out show, completely sold out. Every audience member, and I think this is one of the vibes that Trevor had been talking about, was like so many fat people there.
Yes.
So many fat people there. If you were a straight size person, which we'll get to the terminology later in the episode, you felt like you were in a different space. You felt like you were in somebody else's space in a good way, because it provided this amazing sense of community with people. Like you're looking around and all of that kind of awkwardness of like, trying to get from point A to point B and stairs and all of this, the logistics of just getting to the enjoyment of the show. You realize everybody else is going through the same stuff, and everybody else is kind of just there with you to experience Lizzo. Everybody that was able, and this is a lot of people, were on their feet. And I don't mean, for the opening number, and I don't just mean, the mosh pit down right in front of the stage. I mean every single seat in that stadium where somebody was able to be standing for that long, they were. All the way up to literally as Lizzo pointed out, there are no nosebleeds at her show, but the top row on the far side, the worst possible seat you can imagine. Throughout the concert, I was checking over and over and over, and everybody on their feet for the entire show. And I've seen some fairly large concerts before and some smaller concerts. And usually when people have seats, like if you're not just in the standing room only venue, people sit down. They'll sit down for the ballads. They'll sit down after the first opening numbers or whatever. Nobody did. Everybody was just living for this show.
Well, and I think because we've talked about a lot about Lizzo on the podcast, and just her whole message of loving yourself and how like she wants you to love yourself, but like when you're in you know, and I say the room with her but it's weird because it's like it's an arena, but you just get how much she wants you to love yourself. And there was a moment where, you know, Michael said, she said, there's no nosebleeds, but there was a moment where she had roses she was giving out to the audience and also just stopping to kind of take in being surrounded by, you know, a full arena in her hometown and like reading signs, you know, up in the nosebleed and taking a moment to be like, oh, you know, I see you, person with the silver sign that wrote blah, blah, blah. And doing that for like the whole arena.
Yeah. Top balconies.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there like, holy crap, she has good vision. I mean, she's looking all the way up into the rafters to pick out people who are that excited to be there and say, thank you for coming. I see you. You're awesome. She spent a good 5 solid minutes on this bit going around the entire arena just to thank people. There's a segment of her show where she has you repeat, and Trevor, you might remember the actual phrasing. She starts with, when was the last time you said something kind to yourself?
Yeah.
And then she has you say,
it's like, I am
special.
I'm special. I am beautiful. I am loved. I have the video on, I'll post the video maybe with this episode if I remember to do that.
But everybody, when you hear everybody in the audience chanting that in unison, it takes on a whole new, it's not just a shtick anymore. It takes on a whole power unto itself. That is, I think, a lot of what people talk about. You're not just going to see her perform great music. That's like the starting place. And she just builds on top of that. And some really unique presentations, numbers, the energy she brings. Holy crap. I don't know how she does it.
I was wondering, I thought of this after. So there's a point, you know, in we talked about the Nashville concert where, you know, they talked about the therapy session where the couch rises out and she sings a song, but also kind of sits with the audience. And that was in this show. And I'm like, I wonder is this just so like, you know, I don't know, her 3-minute break while she's also still singing and engaging with the audience. But like, if this is her, like, okay,
this is her chance to slow down.
I get like a sip of water and I get to, you know, stop dancing for a second. And then I have to get up and dance and go do another costume change or something.
One of my favorite like side moments was she had of course the big girls from her show were her backup dancers, and they all had featured moments. She also gave her backup singers, like she introduced each one and they each got a featured solo to sing like during the show, where they weren't just like standing in the background going ooh and ah, which was cool. Well, one of my favorite moments was one of the big girls brought out this giant pink purse. And I was like,
God, yeah.
oh, it's it's like playing off of the whole tiny purse she brought to the red carpet. But no, she goes into the giant pink purse and pulls out the tiny pink purse that she actually wanted.
And everyone in the audience loses their minds collectively.
Oh my God, it was so loud. The music was not as loud, and it was very loud, as the audience.
Yes.
Oh my God.
If you can swing it, look into boxes for concerts, because I think that is a very accessible way. And you know, there were 3 of us. I think you could probably get like, I don't know, 6 to 8, you know, super chubs in the box.
Yeah.
Like I said,
split the cost.
Yeah. And I would say, you know, there are some concerns about like maybe if you have mobility issues with the steps and everything, but it's a way to do it.
Yeah, I think whenever Lizzo tours, we have to try and make that show.
Yeah. And I think I want to make a sign next time, and maybe she'll read my sign.
Oh, God. Such a fanboy.
I would have been, I think I probably would have just like fall into the ground weeping uncontrollably if I had a sign and she read it.
Anyway, we could go on and on and on, and I already know a lot of this will end up on Patreon for the cutting room floor.
No, it's 20 minutes of gold, Michael. 20 minutes of gold.
No, literally, general audience, this has been 20 minutes of us raving about Lizzo. I'm sorry, some of it has to go on Patreon. This can't all be in the episode.
I loved it so much.
Yes. So now that we've gotten that out of our system for this year, What do we got next on the docket?
Well, David Harbour's back, and
Yay.
it's Santa season, so we have David Harbour as sexy action hero Santa in Violent Night, which
Violent Night. Oh my God.
And
I
I will be upfront and I'll say I have not watched the trailer on this one because I am so excited to see the movie.
I
No
will say
spoilers.
the trailer looks interesting. If this was the kind of movie I would see it, I would see it. It's basically it's Home Alone meets The Purge.
Oh, wow. That's a hell of a way to put it.
I love this for David Harbour.
Yeah.
I love this for like I don't know, doing a Santa action movie. Wasn't there another one of these last year?
Yes, but it was
Yeah.
not. It wasn't nearly this fun. Again, I'm
Yeah.
going by the preview, and the previews.
I think it was horror. I think that one was horror too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking, was it like Fat Man or something?
There was that. The Mel
Maybe that was
Gibson
like
thing.
maybe that was 2019. Am I still in
Yeah.
like pandemic mode of being like, yeah,
I never
last year,
saw that.
2019?
No, I think for the last 5 years, every Christmas season has had a Christmas horror film.
Yeah.
Krampus.
I don't know. This does not seem like horror to me, though. It seems like, I don't know, action thriller. I have to
Yeah.
say, this,
It is.
you know,
Yeah.
David Harbour in this, it's like the first time I've been like, yeah, Santa's kind of hot. Because I know we've talked about sexy Santa in episodes past and Christmases past. And like, this is I don't know, I think the closest I've been to like, yeah, this is.
I will say this is very much like Stranger Things season 4, like prison camp, hot, thin David Harbour. He doesn't
Yeah.
really look fat in this movie, but it's still David Harbour. We know what he's been through and what he
Well,
does
and
for his work.
in the scenes I saw in the preview, it's really fun. It's really funny. It's edgy and dangerous. It's I think it's everything you want.
And for a while, I wasn't sure if it was just like, you know, a Santa, like a mall Santa going crazy, but it is actually magical Santa, which I know because I just happened to randomly click at a part in the trailer where he literally appears in a poof of like sparks and sparkles out of the fireplace.
Well, to be fair, so does Trevor. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, he does bring that like, and I'm sure this is part of the filmmaking, the lighting too, but that like twinkle in his eye, that like
Yeah.
Santa kind of Dumbledore quality. Like you do get some of that before, you know, he starts cracking heads and taking names.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, it seems balanced. It'd be fun to watch.
Yeah. That's the Home Alone aspect.
yeah.
Exactly.
So check it out. Is coming out December 2nd, so not long after this episode launches, actually. And in theaters, I'm assuming it'll come to streaming shortly thereafter. But yeah, David Harbour, support him.
Can I plug another quick movie that I think some people might enjoy?
Who do?
Yeah.
Sure.
I watched Spirited over the Thanksgiving weekend.
Oh, how is
That's the
that?
new Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds movie, musical. And I gotta say, I enjoyed it. It's a take on Scrooge, and I think it actually, for me, I think it evolved the Scrooged message a little bit to match modern sensibilities a little bit more, which I really enjoyed. And another pleasant surprise is that the romantic lead of the movie is Octavia Spencer.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yes.
I did not see that coming. When she showed up, I just thought she was going to sort of be a Marley character. The poor downtrodden employee, and I was wrong. She is the romantic lead of the movie, and she is a very important part of it. So, very enjoyable. A lot of good little surprises. You have Tracy Morgan as the ghost of Christmas Future, and you have for those Game of Thrones fans out there, the little lady Mormont plays a character in it. So it was fun and some very unexpected mixed body relationships and
good.
love interests.
Oh, nice.
Damn time.
You may not know, is this produced by Ryan Reynolds, like his production company?
I actually do not know that.
He did Free Guy, and I get this sense that he's kind of like, I'm going to take the industry by the balls and do it my way. And if this is produced by him also, I'm just...
Yes, produced by him.
Oh my God. Okay.
I just looked it up.
I'm such a fan of this movie now. I'm going to totally watch it.
It's really fun, and I thought both of the leads really nailed it. So check it out. I thought it was very enjoyable.
Awesome.
Yay.
All right. Well, I think it is time.
It's time. Sorry.
Trevor's dying in the background.
It's
You can't
It's
die.
Fat
It's Fat Watch.
it's
He got a bird stuck in his
2022.
throat as we were
Yeah.
soaring over California.
Oh my God.
A bug flew in. Fat Watch. We came in maybe not so gracefully, but this is one of the best ones in recent memory, as far as I'm
Yes.
concerned. We have good news coming out of Portland from OregonLive.com, which is a news website, and this is an article by Destiny Johnson about Fat Fancy, a boutique that specializes in clothing and items catering to plus-size folks, started and owned and operated by Erica Bauer, who is, I mean, I think her quotes speak for themselves. I'm just going to read you the first quote they have in this article. Fat Fancy started in about 2006 to 2007 in a basement where all of these fatties rolled in with their racks of clothes because there's nowhere else for us to shop. Oh, she's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're laughing at is just like how ridiculous it is that they have no place to shop.
Yes.
Well, no, I was, to me, well, yes, that also, but to me, it's the boldness of using the word fatties, which is a big part of the article. In fact, I think it's mostly the point of it.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean,
which
unfortunately, we still are at this point where all journalists feel like they need to spend somewhere between a quarter and a half of the article talking about their choice of the word fat and defending that fat people are allowed to exist. And okay. Yeah. I got to say, one of my favorite parts of this store is that, they do cater to people of all sizes. It's just that the traditional straight sizes are hidden in the back with it.
That's what I was going to say. I love that. I love that other
it.
people would have to look for the special section and know what every day of my life is. The other thing I love is, and you've told me in the past that other people have this, and I've never seen it though, is that they have a tailor on site.
That is brilliant. And I've said this for a long, yes, it's so important because there are people who can walk in and wear the clothes off the rack, but that's not even all the straight size people.
Yeah.
Right. Ready to wear is not necessarily ready for everyone to wear. And certainly for big people and for tall people and for anybody who's not that straight size. Yeah. Tailoring is a huge part of it, but we're not accustomed to taking that into consideration or thinking that is somehow extra. I think that's most people if they had the opportunity. And I love that it's on site, like you said, Don.
Yep.
There's something about the article which is so endemic to all of these. They're really great news. I love it. But you'll notice that any mention of men's fashion or men's reference points for fat men is completely absent. To look at the media, you would swear there's no such thing as a fat man. Just no such thing. They don't exist. Right? Like you don't see articles discussing the volume of a unicorn and you don't see articles discussing fat men. So this kind of goes into our mailbag. Zip thud. A listener writes in, I am curious about the origins of straight-sized. I know descriptors are tricky. I can tell you I welcome being called skinny. It's no more of a neg to me than someone being called fat. And fit is loaded, but maybe trim is neutral to describe a body that is not fat. Keep the good stuff coming. And so it got us thinking about this idea of negative connotations of thinness in the male body image and the feminist origins of the language around fatness.
Yeah. Well, so we've talked about kind of the terminology and kind of fat activism of super fat and mid fat and finifat, all that, which, given the feminist origins of fat activism, all the reference point for sizes is women's clothing sizes. And I don't...
Is there a clothing size called Infinifat?
No, but Infinifat is anything, I think, over a 5X in women's clothing sizes.
Ah, okay, I see.
And so on and so on. And to my knowledge, there has never been a comparison of Infinifat over 5X in women's sizes or 5X in men's sizes, 4X in men's sizes, 6X in men's sizes.
Men are just not part of the conversation of fat liberation.
And so we talked about that before. I can't remember what episode it was where we kind of looked into that a little bit and explained that and brought that out. But in thinking about that, I thought it was interesting that there is not really any dialogue. And I feel weird, as a fat person, like, well, but what about thin people being oppressed? But
that's
the
valid, because when you're talking about bigger people, you're going to talk about normie people.
Yeah.
I like to call them muggles myself, but
there's so much pressure on, women to be thin, but it's the opposite for men where, being a thin man is seen as, especially now, like, I think we talked about this in another episode about, like, with TikTok, there's all this bodybuilding stuff targeting young men who, like,
and abs, must have abs.
mm-hmm.
And that, like, skinny, I think for a lot of guys, like, would be activating or triggering to be like, oh, he's just a skinny guy.
Well,
Yeah.
and in the gay community, I see this, if you use the word twink has now gone from fashionable to derogatory, right? If you call someone a twink, it's like insulting them because they have that body. And so, any twink aspires to be a twunk, and it's gotten out of hand, people. It's gotten out of hand.
So I don't know. I would be curious to hear from, the non-fats about this, because I think there's a lot to say, but I don't know. I have not really had that experience of being in a thin body.
Well, at the start of the conversation, let's just ask real quick. So if you're going to talk about someone with a mainstream body, right, the expected American body, what term do you currently use? I have to admit, I kind of wander. I accidentally drop the word normal, which I try to avoid. But, I guess I will normally go for, normie or average.
Straight size. I mean, that's
I like
it
straight
feels strange
size
to me.
Right, because I like straight size because it says what I mean. On the other hand, it sounds so jargony, and it refers to clothing as if we are again back in that paradigm of we have to fit the clothing.
Well, but I also feel like straight is so associated with a specific sexuality that I'm like, I feel like I'm assigning a sexuality to someone's body, which is weird.
Well, and where it comes from though is that idea of, like, again, you don't want to say normal, so we're going to say straight.
Yeah.
I admit that I don't like fit to describe non-fat because it sets them up as opposites. Skinny, I don't know. I don't like it technically because it's not like they have more skin. If anything, the reverse. Thin, I think thin works in comparison to thick or fat, except that, again, the opposite of thin is thick, not fat. I don't like non-fat because that sounds like milk.
I mean, I think
straight size is kind of what I land on.
I think I have fallen into straight size, but also I think sometimes, like, I will often, if I'm outside of chaser space, if I'm outside of fat activism space, I will say civilian.
Yeah.
Just because it's, I don't know. I like that it's like othering, but kind of othering myself as like, oh, this just the general population who doesn't. And I think it's because it's like, it captures the unawareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like civilian for that use. I sometimes use civilians when I mean like non-chub and chaser.
Yeah.
I think the bigger concern for me is why men have been so absent. And we've talked about why, but that men are so absent from the fat liberation conversation. And that it is even, if you look at the evolution of these things in academia, it used to be that you had anthropology, and then you had women's studies, and now you have fat studies. But given its legacy, fat studies is still, kind of a subset of women's studies.
Mm-hmm.
And so it again, it's not that we need to create a different studies department for every gender, but rather that it's the rhetoric around it and who we're talking to and who is speaking. Again, it's understandable that it's women because fat is a feminist issue, as says the book title, but it's not just a feminist issue, which is what is so debilitating, and I think what ultimately robs fat liberation of its power when it becomes just about certain people.
But also, let's change the label for a second. The issue isn't that it's feminist, because I don't know many people who would have an issue with being feminist, but I think the issue is that men see the issue as being feminine.
I agree
Right?
with you. I agree with you 100%. And that's why
yeah.
it's not manly to complain about how you're being perceived by society and
or to acknowledge that it hurts you in some way.
But I will
know-
say that gays are at the vanguard of this because, as has been said, no one knows the male gaze more than the male gaze. And it's really you like that?
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
and it's really true because, if you're a straight man, it's you're not in the male gaze the way a gay guy is.
And you can see them become very uncomfortable when the male gaze applied to them in a way that they can't control.
Oh, it's comical. The absolute outrage and indignation when a straight man is treated like the way they treat women. Yeah, it's amazing. But I don't think it's an accident that the same trap of masculinity is what's keeping men out of the fat liberation conversation.
Yeah. Which is damaging us in the long run.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, just part of it is we're starting to see, just barely some change in, not even the way, I would say the way men talk about body image, but just the fact that conversations are starting to happen and people are starting to say, hey, we should look at this, or hey, it seems like young men are really suffering. Maybe we should do something about this. But because there's not really any existing framework, there's not.
Well,
I think
it's even more insidious than that, because there is a counter push that says, well, young men should be suffering. You should be struggling for that ideal body. After all, that's why it's an ideal body. You should be struggling. You should be suffering. And I don't think that. I'm not sure that same toxicity exists in the feminine conversation. You would definitely hear, talking about a young man, you would definitely hear well, it's good how much he's suffering. It's toughening him up. I don't think you hear so much about well, it's good that she's suffering. It's toughening her up. I don't think we see that same parallel.
The closest I can think is the whole pain is beauty, but it's just a whole. Women have have a whole different flavor of toxicity, which is I think weirder because it's well, you love yourself, so you should cinch and trim and starve and tuck and fold and
yeah. But I don't think I think that the idea that pain is good for you is a masculine ideal.
Well, I feel like we're going to have to start. So it's been observed over the past 20 years, rises in rates of bulimia in young men. Body issues we've always associated with women, we've started seeing growing in the male population.
And just in case you think it's the gay male population, no, it's it's predominantly in sports, and especially sports that take body weight or body composition into account.
Yeah, so these terminologies, I think they matter. And it's interesting, when you look at terminologies that apply to fat people, all of them seem to carry a specific negative connotation. And every thin body descriptor I could think of, trim, compact, lean, they all had positive connotations, with the possible exception of skinny, which personally, I think it has positive connotations, but I've met plenty of skinny people who self-affirmed skinny people who would say it's a negative.
I think that's kind of true, but I would say that a lot of people that have that are thin, that have body image issues, do not trim or compact, because it's activating the negative feelings they have about their own body, in the same way that a lot of terminology around fatness activates people about their body.
I did have a very thin friend who knew me and knew my work, of course, and was like, well, I don't get it. Where are all the skinny chasers? Meaning the people who were looking for very thin men.
You mean just gay guys?
Well, no, because he had been turned down a lot of his life for being too skinny, or at least that's what he thought. So, and that is true, but it's the same. It's the same thing about if you're very, very thin, you can have trouble finding clothing. Yeah, not the same. So not the same. And I don't think we need to go down that set of railroad tracks, but there is this idea that skinny is derogatory or pejorative, but not necessarily for everyone, because the person who wrote us the letter doesn't feel that way.
So I've been mulling this conversation over very delicately in my head, because there's something that's very difficult about it, and took me a while to put my finger on it. As to Dan's point about men not really existing nearly as much, seemingly not at all in the fat liberation movement. As a straight sized man, I don't feel like I'm allowed to talk. And I think this might be a reaction to the whole Taylor Swift thing. It's very fresh on my mind. But I don't know that our listeners are necessarily the kind of people to like shut us up or like put us in our place. But I feel extremely nervous to even like talk in this space. Like I don't want to say anything because I don't know.
You're going to get slapped.
Yeah, I feel intensely unwelcome.
Yeah.
And
that's by design.
Yeah. I think that, there's a lot of people out there who will hear that statement and go, good, you should be.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it really difficult to keep doing stuff like this when there's so much internal hatred within the fat liberation movement against people who are just trying to help, like just trying to contribute and to be a part of positive change. Yeah, it makes it hard to clear my head and say anything useful.
Mm-hmm. I have found that certainly as someone who does a lot of work in presenting and talking about this stuff, I have overwhelmingly found that. But what I find is that there are quarters where like this podcast, right? This podcast is a wonderful mix of voices, and it finds its own audience. And there are a bunch of people who think like, well, why are there even chasers on the show? How disgusting. But those aren't our listeners.
Yeah.
And you go where you can make a difference. You go where you're appreciated.
And I feel like conversations spread, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you start engaging in the conversations in spaces that you feel safe to, where you feel allowed, that conversation spreads to other areas too, I think. So I would like to believe that you're and Dan existing on the podcast, having an open conversation about these issues with Trevor and I, maybe this is making it possible for other bridges to start being built in other places and for other people to start wading in and helping.
Well, I can tell you from many, many, many years of experience, the fact that we have so many chasers as listeners, I think is largely because there's no other place to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hope we're good at what we do, but there are very few places where chasers are allowed to exist without having to defend themselves
and feel judged constantly by third parties.
Yeah, you have to defend yourself. You have to prove that you're not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think also, I don't know, this might not be helpful, but I think it's worth saying that I think it also, the fact that tensions are so high, I think are a good sign, because I feel like it means like we're on the threshold of something.
I agree.
And the reason I say that is because I've always been like, is this just like a fat thing? Is this just like a weird thing with fat activism? And I was talking to a friend of Dan's who is really involved in breast cancer and nonprofit stuff.
Yep.
And she was like, and after the NAFA Ally Week thing, I was kind of talking to her and just like, I don't even like do you deal with anything like this? And she's like, all the time. And she's like, in the organization I work with, people are arguing about, did you have enough cancer? Like I had more, my cancer was worse than yours. So I have more authority to speak on this issue.
And why don't you stop speaking because you don't have enough cancer to speak for me? Yeah.
And that it is just a symptom of being in the space and trying to make change. It comes with the territory. But I think, I don't know, I would not say this is like a fat liberation podcast. This is a podcast for fat people and the people that love them, like, is in our little description. And I think also just like, being very frank about these things when they come up, like, talking about the whole Ally Week thing when it came up and our personal reactions to that is part of getting people involved, because be like, these things happen. this is how we're dealing with it. This is how to navigate it, is helpful. And I think just being frank about your hesitancy to do that is helpful to people. And you should keep doing it because all
you can do is contribute where you're allowed to contribute.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think our listening audience is like that.
No, quite the opposite.
It's just an awareness that, I mean, like Don said, conversations spread. And I think we've been lucky that, our podcast has been relatively, we kind of just get to go along and do our own thing. And we haven't really been dug up and scrutinized all that much. But
well,
I just
we're not for everyone. I don't know.
Yeah, I know we've all said things on this podcast at some point or another that someone could take offense to.
But fuck those people.
Yeah, you could say that in your day-to-day life. I mean, there's no avoiding that.
That's called being a human being. Yeah.
But what we are is we're a space where, the four of us don't agree on every topic.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't. I kill you.
Listener, you're welcome here. That's the point. I know, unless you're going to be a dick, then just chill. This is this is space for good vibes and fat talk and getting silly sometimes, getting serious other times, and having
we've
feelings
even gotten
together.
some emails from people who disagreed with us, and that leads us into good conversations. It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had a lot of talk. We had a lot of feelings. Let us know how you feel about this stuff, because I think we've had people do that, and I think that's always enriching to us as talkers and to our listeners. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot to say, a lot of feelings about this topic and the complexity of it. So please let us know. And we'll leave it there for now, to be continued. This is one of those things we'll probably revisit because things keep changing and not changing.
And as a side note, to verify my theory, if one of our conversations on the podcast has bled into your real life and you've had a conversation with someone because of that, I'd love to hear about it. I'd be curious.
Yeah. Do we have a tip for today?
I don't know.
Go see Lizzo. Next time
Lizzo.
Lizzo is on tour. The tour is over, but next tour, go.
Yeah, 2023.
Swing it. And maybe get a group together locally so you can split the cost of a box, because that was definitely a good way to do it.
All righty, we do have a bit for the day.
Yay.
So this is another one of those. We're trying something different today. Something a little random. Since we were exploring definitions today, I figured we would learn some new words.
Okay.
With some strange definitions. So let's see.
Can I just go out on a limb here and say that Dan's probably familiar with all of them already?
No, you know what's going to happen? I will have a really long explanation to a wrong answer, and Trevor will get it right. And Trevor, as always, will get it right.
Well, the reason why I love these words is because these, you will understand shortly, these are all words that actually exist in the English language, and I'm very happy for them.
I would hope so.
So let's start this off. I am going to give you a definition and 4 different words, and you will decide which word matches the definition. All right?
Okay.
This is a simple term that refers to being confused, perplexed, or flustered, or to cause confusion. As an additional hint, you've probably heard your grandma or grandpa use this phrase, especially if you're from the East Coast or below the Mason-Dixon line. Which word am I talking about? Dumbwazzle, bumfuzzle, dorkweasel, or squash noggin?
I've never heard any of those.
Dan is buzzing in.
I think the second one, bumfuzzled.
Bumfuzzled. Okay. We've got a bumfuzzle.
I'm going to say bumfuzzle because I've heard cunfuzzled.
Yeah.
Oh, like confused. I thought you said cumfuzzle, which must mean something else.
Cunfuzzled.
Okay, cunfuzzle. All right. Michael?
Yeah, I'll go with the same answer just to keep the score even.
I'm going to have you guys start writing your letters or answers down like Jeopardy. The answer is, in fact, bumfuzzle.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yay.
Which apparently comes from a Norwegian word, domfuzzle. So, All right. This is actually a Scottish term, but it sounds awesome. The definition is kind of a gross one. This is what people living in Edinburgh shouted out their windows as a warning before dumping their slop buckets out their window. All right.
You did say these were all English words. In Scottish, I'm not entirely convinced it's English.
exactly.
it got absorbed into English.
Uh-huh.
All right. The four options are dump waller, watch shit, poopsala, or Gardyloo.
I'm going to say dump waller.
Dump waller.
Poopsala, because I can hear somebody shouting that, but like in a sing-songy tone.
Poopsala.
Poopsala, splat.
I feel like Uppsala is a different word, but I think it is it dump with the first one, Dumbwaller?
Dump waller.
Dumpwaller. Yeah, I think it's
right.
Dumpwaller.
Well, the correct answer is in fact Gardyloo.
Oh.
Huh.
Which, come on, admit it. That's got to be pretty fun to shout out your window while you're hucking your shit out the second floor.
Yes, and you know,
Gardyloo. This gonna be my war cry. All right.
I mean,
This word
has a Scottish accent, though. It's got to sound a little bit different in the
Oh.
Scottish accent.
you got to cry out Gardyloo.
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 I'm sorry. I'm just going to say my bladder is going to explode. So like,
Oh, Gardyloo.
yeah.
All right. This word references someone or something that is filled with pretentious nonsense or something that is a lie. A great example of this is the classic fisherman's tale of how big the fish he caught was. The four options are taradiddle, blow grabber, bugle grouse, or crap howler.
Crap howler.
Crap howler.
I'm going to go for bugle grouse just because I like it.
That was my second choice.
I got to say, crap howler and bugle grouse were my favorite creations on that list. But in fact,
No.
the correct word is taradiddle.
Oh, no. No, can't be. Not at all.
I like, Don, I'm liking your suggestions for each of these a lot better than the actual word.
Trevor is very good at making up British slang, I have to say.
All right. Well, before Trevor's bladder completely implodes into a singularity, let's do social media. Where can people reach out to us when they describe their conversations they've had with meaningful others in their lives?
Oh, are we done?
Are we? Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Oh God. Okay.
happening?
We're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. 5 stars there. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars everywhere. See us on Patreon. Patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com.
Gardyloo.
Yeah.
Maybe you're outside listening on your fancy Apple AirPods 2 that you got on Black Friday, and you hear something through the noise cancellation, and you look up and it's someone's doing the Gardyloo. So
Gardyloo.